First of all, trigger warning for abuse, talking about abuse, and also spoiler alert if you don't want to hear about what happens in the book Educated.
Let me ask a little truth. I'd like to know your point of view.
Hi everybody, welcome to Evening TV. I'm Evening Ransom. I wanted to talk about a book. Now this book, it's actually kind of a little bit old news. It came out about a year ago, I think, but I only just now read it. It's Educated by Tara Westover. And the reason that I wanted to talk about this book, it really ends in an estranged family, and that it doesn't show up very often in a book. Woman, she's estranged from her family, and she's only barely 30, I think. The other reason I didn't rush to read the book was because I didn't really pay a lot of attention to it, because generally speaking, I'm not crazy about reading books, memoirs that people write in their 20s. I think that's a little early to write a memoir for most people, but I was not in this case. It's very similar, in my mind, it's very similar to The Glass Castle in a lot of ways. There's a lot of kids, and they have a very off-the-grid kind of lifestyle. The kids don't go to school, just the same as Glass Castle, but there's a different element to it in that Jeanette Wall's family was not religious. They were crazy and alcoholic, and then Tara's family wasn't poverty-stricken. So those are kind of the differences. So it kind of feels like there's poverty involved in Tara's life, but they really weren't. And ultimately, in the end, the family ends up being quite wealthy. But it feels like they have a impoverished life, because it's a very rural life. The kids grew up running a junkyard that's very, very dangerous, and they have a very rural, hard lifestyle. On a farm, slopping pigs, and it's in Idaho. They live in Idaho, completely off the grid. She never had a birth certificate. She never saw a doctor. Never stepped foot in a school at all, and the thing that is remarkable about her is that she really had no homeschooling. They said they were homeschooled to get into BYU, but they really weren't schooled at all. They really had barely even any reading materials around the house. They read the scriptures, but that was about it. And this woman is remarkable. So there were 7 kids. She's the youngest of 7, and in the end, 3 of her siblings, she and 2 other siblings, 3 of them have PhDs, and 4 of the siblings don't even have GEDs or high school diplomas. So that's and they actually are kind of divided along those lines. The family's divided along those lines, in fact. So she's estranged from the ones that stayed back where she back home where she came from. But what I thought was kind of remarkable about the book was that there was so much, granted, most of us did not grow up anything like this. She has a really abusive brother. One of her brothers, called Sean, is just really, really, abusive. And there's a couple undiagnosed mental disorders in the family. The father is bipolar. There's a little bit of confusion there, because she takes a psychology course and here's bipolar disorder, here's all about it, and it sounds exactly like her dad. She's like, oh my gosh, that's him. And then at some point her mother tells her that her dad had bipolar disorder and he wasn't treating it. And so, but then there's a lot of gaslighting in this book. A lot of gaslighting, like things that were said and then denied, and her whole reality is completely denied. And then there's a lot of religious stuff that gets kind of used to erase things and also discount things. So they can just say she's evil, or say she's possessed and things like that if they want to discount what she's saying. The thing she'd ever heard was what her father had said. Her father really dominated the family, and the mother was very submissive and subservient to him. She went along with what he said and failed to protect her daughter, and there was a lot of resentment there too, because she really did not protect her daughter. She didn't protect him against her brother or any of the stuff. And it was really quite, the father didn't protect the children either. The children were there were some really serious injuries that happened, and the father was involved in a lot of these really serious injuries, and they happened somewhat because of him. The thing that I thought was just so resonated with me was this pull that you have, this denial you have about, the ground starts to break and the sand starts to shift underneath your feet, and you start to lose the reality that you had bought into all your life. What you have to decide to sacrifice. No one gets out of this. No one gets out of it for free. So she had just been brutalized by her brother, really bad once more, and he would like shove her head in the toilet, and it was just really. And her descriptions of these things are really incredible. It's a really beautifully written book, really great, really well written, and the physical violence is really incredible. There's physical violence at the hand of this brother Sean, and then there is just a lot of just environmental violence that happens with just accidents and terrible things that just go on, and they don't believe in any medical care. So the mother is an herbalist who treats them with tinctures and things, and so she describes how she just they suffer, and there's like at one point where her brother has this terrible burn, her father has a terrible burn, and they don't get any medical care for it. Oh, she had a blackened toe. Her toe was fat and black because it got broken on her days home with her over the holidays. Soon after, I find a pamphlet for the University Counseling Service on my desk. I barely look at it, just knock it into the trash. I could not see a counselor. To see one would be to ask for help, and I believed myself invincible. It was an elegant deception, a mental pirouette. The toe was not broken because it was not breakable. Only an X-ray would prove it otherwise. Thus, the X-ray would break my toe. My algebra final was swept up into the superstition. In my mind, it acquired a kind of mystical power. I studied with the intensity of the insane, believing that if I could best this exam, win the impossible perfect score, even with my broken toe, without Charles to help me, it would prove that I was above it all, untouchable. Her friend Charles, who was one of the only people she'd ever had around, he was from out. She met him doing a play, and he came back to the house and seen this abuse start, and he just told her he couldn't be a part of it anymore. The morning of the exam, I limped to the testing center and sat in the drafty hall. The test was in front of me. The problems were compliant, pliable. They yielded to my manipulations, forming into solutions one after the other. I handed in my answer sheet, then stood in the frigid hallway, staring up at the screen that would display my score. When it appeared, I blinked and blinked again. 100, a perfect score. I was filled with the exquisite numbness. I felt drunk with it and wanted to shout to the world, here's the proof, nothing touches me. An amazing capacity to learn, really amazing. And she really needed it, not only academically, but socially. Socially, she was completely awkward. She had never even heard of the Holocaust, never even heard of the Civil Rights Movement. She was really ignorant. And she also didn't know really how other people live. She had a sister, she had an older sister and a mother, and still she really had no idea even about her own body. She had no idea. At one point, I think she's 15 or something, her brother called her a whore. She'd never even never kissed a boy, never did anything. And he said something about her being pregnant, and she wondered if she was. She was like laying in bed wondering if she could be pregnant. Days later, when it was confirmed that I was not pregnant, I evolved a new understanding of the word whore, one that was less about actions and more about essence. It was not that I had done something wrong so much as that I existed in the wrong way. There was something impure in the fact that of my being. It's strange how we give people we love so much power over us. I had written in my journal, but Sean had more power over me than I could possibly have imagined. He had defined me to myself, and there's no greater power than that. For any of you that have followed me at all, I have a story where I talk about when I came home from college, and I asked my mom if she had any idea why I couldn't remember anything. Why I just can't remember my childhood at all. Do you have any idea why? And her reaction to that was so strong. She got so defensive and felt like she acted like I had really done something wrong, and it really puzzled me. It was really shocked me and surprised me. The line put in the sand right there, where I knew I was not allowed that there was something I wasn't supposed to bring up. I wasn't supposed to talk about the past. I wasn't supposed to, and that whatever it was, she wasn't going to help me. Well, this is sort of what happens here, is that, she basically says to her mom, how come you never stopped Sean from beating me up? As though it never happened, or he's been reborn, and if she can't just forget about it and move on, then she's the one that's in the wrong. They'd already tried to come and save her and let them do it. She wouldn't let them do like some kind of a possession thing with her, and because she knew that it would be what they're basically trying to do. They weren't trying to get the devil out of her. They were trying to get her memory out of her, trying to get her truth out of her. Our time, she's really, she wants her family. She wants her family, and so she feels like she's made this terrible mistake. So she goes home one last time to try and make it right. To try and right when she gets there, she promises her friend or her boyfriend that she will send him an email every 2 hours to let him know that she's okay, because he's scared of her going back there. Right when she gets there, she says, I need to send him an email. And they do have a computer at this point. They have a computer down in the basement. Now they're getting like a bigger house, and they've actually got some success and stuff. And the mother's business has outshined what the dad had ever done. It's kind of crazy. But anyway, so she goes and she finds not cleared on the computer is this letter that her mother had sent out it was a smear campaign, basically. I closed the browser and stared at the wallpaper behind the screen. It was the same floral print from my childhood. For how long had I been dreaming of seeing it? I had come to reclaim that life, to save it, but there was nothing here to save, nothing to grasp. There was only shifting sand, shifting loyalties, shifting histories. For any of us who are estranged from our families, that has got to sound so familiar. So it's a different story. It's a different story for sure, but the outcome is so much the same. And this is also, I was also having another episode that I'm working on about cults and narcissistic families. This falls right in line with that. I was focusing on Scientology in that other episode, but this goes along with it. Narcissistic families have this quality that's just, it's radical, it's extreme, it's got all the qualities of cult-like behavior, as does this family. And so the relationships are inevitable harm, because you either follow blindly and decide to succumb to you give up your thinking, you give your free will to someone else's, or you are excommunicated. You're cut off completely. Well written book, great themes that will resonate with you, even though the storyline is extreme and probably unlike most everybody's here, but there are going to be pieces and parts of it, like all good memoirs. There's pieces and parts of it that you read into and resonate with you. She's a remarkable person. What she does is remarkable. That also makes it a really good read. Is that what she really does is amazing. What she manages to do, and that she's now this extremely well-educated, sophisticated, charismatic woman who's only barely 30 years old, and she was born in 1986. So, young woman, but grew up without any education in a junkyard, and never stepped foot in a classroom until she was 17 years old, and her first classroom was in college at BYU. Really amazing. And that she ended up going to being a fellow at Harvard, and then being getting her PhD at Cambridge. Really, and then to come out with her first book and have it be just to such acclaim, because it really is masterfully written. Now, she claims that her first drafts were not, and I kind of like, I hope they weren't, because it's so hard to do, and I've been working on mine for a long time. I haven't been working on it for years, but I worked on it for years and then stopped. I'm about ready to start working on it again. Anyways, okay, you guys. So tell me if you have any thoughts about this book, if you've read it, and also if another question you can answer if you don't want to talk about that is what it is you're working on. Are you thinking about writing a memoir? Are you thinking about writing an autobiography that's just true for you to keep, like a personal history, or poetry, or songwriting, or essay writing, short stories? Just kind of give me some idea of what it is that you are interested in writing, and so I can kind of gear the classes to you. Okay, you guys, thank you so much, Give me a thumbs up, please. It's 3 ways you can help me out. And do subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks a lot. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.